Hello, BookTube. This is Alan. I'm back home from work. Work was kind of slow today. There wasn't a lot of people there because of the production staff are off for 3 days. They won't be back till Tuesday. Actually, Monday night. There's a group of people that come in at 3 o'clock in the morning to work the produce to work production. Excuse me. And the rest of the people are not there. There was only maintenance and sanitation are the only two people there. And also the nurse showed up, and she didn't hear the word that there would be nobody there. So I was with another coworker today, and tomorrow Sunday I'll be by myself, and Monday I'll be with another coworker. So it's very slow. So that means I'm going to get a lot of work done. So anyway, I thought I'd go through the Century magazine. It's in 1888, and this one is on open letters. This is General Grant and Mateus Romero, and this is written by Mr. Romero, Mateus Romero. And just a minute, I'll tell you who in the letter explains who Mateus Romero is. General Adam Badeau published in the Century for October 1885 an article entitled The Last Days of General Grant, in which he said, about the same time Mr. Romero, the Mexican minister, who had been a valued friend from the period when the French were driven from Mexico, came on from Washington, insisted on lending him $1,000. At first, the general declined the offer, but Mr. Romero suddenly quitted the room, leaving his check for $1,000 on the table. But for those secures, the man who had dined with half the kings of the earth would have wanted money to buy bread for himself and his children. I propose General Badeau based his statement on an article published by the Mail and Express of New York on February the 7th, Saturday, February the 7th, 1885, which contained, to my knowledge, the first publication of the incident ever made. Although the statement contained the preceding quotation is not accurate, I refrained from rectifying it when it was published, mainly because I did not wish to wound anyone's susceptibility, and more or less that of General Grant's family, as also on the account of my natural reluctance to bring myself forward before the public, and because the inaccuracies were only of a secondary nature, although reflecting to a certain degree on me, since they represented me as a forcing General Grant to do a thing which was repugnant to me. But friends of the general and of myself had advised me of the convenience of rectifying the historical facts of this incident, and I had therefore determined to make the following statement of what really took place. The banking house of the Grant and Ward of New York, of which General Grant was a partner, failed on the 6th of May, 1884, and believing that said event would place the general under serious embarrassment, I thought that my personal relations with him required my visiting him, and I therefore left Washington on the 9th of that month for New York for the purpose of expressing to him in person my sympathy and concern in the difficult circumstances through which he was passing. I had on the 12th an interview with General Grant at his residence, number 3 East 66th Street, in the city of New York, and he informed me that all he possessed had been lost in the broken bank. Even the interest of a fund of $200,000, which several New York gentlemen had raised for the purpose of giving him an income which would permit him to live decently, had been negotiated previously by Ferdinand Ward, and that 6 months of a year would elapse before he could rely on the interest of said fund. Miss Grant was in the habit, he said, of drawing from the bank a few days after the first of each month the necessary amount to pay the house bills for the previous month, but in May 1884 she had not yet drawn the sum required for that purpose before the failure of the bank. They found themselves, therefore, without the necessary means to do their own marketing. These were her own words. The only amount they had at the house was, he said, as I recollect, about $18. Surprised at hearing the above statement, I told General Grant that he well known I was not a rich man, but that I could dispose of $3,000 to $4,000, which were at once at his disposal, that I would not need them soon, and that he need therefore not be in any hurry concerning the time when he ought to pay me back, and that they are, of course, would draw no interest. General Grant hesitated something before accepting any offer, for fear, as he said, that this loss would put me to some inconvenience, but told me at last that he would borrow $1,000. I asked him whether he wanted said amount in a check drawn by me on the New York bank where I had my funds, or in bank bills. In the latter case, bills of what denomination he desired. He replied that he preferred 10 $100 bills, and I then drew it at once a check, number 406, to my order for $1,000, which were cast at a bank of Mrs. Drexel Morgan and Company of the city of New York, with 10 $100 bills. I returned on the same day to General Grant's house and personally delivered the money to him. I came back to Washington on the 15th of May, and here a few days later I received from General Grant $436 in part payment of the loan of $1,000 made to him on the 12th. On the 24th of the following June, I received a letter from General, dated at the Long Branch the day before, enclosing a check of Messrs. Hoyt Brothers on the Park National Bank of New York to the order of Miss Grant for the sum of $564, so that the loan was fully repaid by a few days after it was made. Not to wound General Grant's susceptibility, I never breathed a word on this subject to anybody, not even to the most intimate members of my family, though through me nobody would ever have known anything about it. However great was my desire to help General Grant through the difficult circumstances which he then underwent, I would never have done so against his full consent, and if he manifested any reluctance to receive the pecuniary aid I offered him, I would not have hesitated on it, as I did not wish to oppose his will in the least, and much less to force him to accept pecuniary aid. Washington, D.C., May 20th, 1888. So it's interesting that what occurred after General Grant left the General Army of the Republic. He went to this, where was it? Banking house called Grant and Ward. and he was a partner, and then they lost all the money. So he didn't was broke right after the war, even though so soon after the war. And that's very interesting. I think it's before. I can't remember when he became president, but he didn't get paid much as president. The next one is called A Note of Peace: The Reunions of the Black, Blue, and the Gray. I'm gonna drink here. Although the horrors of war are more conspicuous where the conflict is between brothers and the struggle is a long, desperate one, the evidences are numerous that underneath the passion and bitterness of our Civil War, there were counter currents of the kindly feeling, a spirit of genuine friendliness pervading the opposing camps. This friendliness was something deeper than the expression of mere human existence. The combatants felt that they were indeed brothers. Acts of kindness to wounded enemies began to be noted at Bull Run, while in every campaign, unless picket firing was almost uniformly discontinuance, and the man shook hands at the outpost and talked confidently of their private affairs and the trials and hardships in the army. This feeling confided perhaps to man the very front line culminated at Appomattox, where the victors shared rations with their late antagonists and generously offered them help in repairing the waste of battle. When the Union veteran returned to the North, he did not disguise his faith in the good intentions of the Southern fighting man. And for a number of years after peace was made, the process of fraternization went quietly forward. The business relations of the sections and the interchange of settlers brought into close communication the rank and file of both armies. And the spirit of goodwill that had been manifest in a manner so unique at the front was found to be hearty and general sentiment. Out of this state of things were developed naturally a series of formal meetings of veterans of Blue and the Gray, the earliest reunions of which I find recorded were held in 1881, the year of the Yorktown centennial and of Garfield's death. The first was a matter of Captain Cowell Post, General Army of the Republic of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and the ex-Confederates of Luray Valley, Virginia. The Southern veterans appointed special committees to welcome the comrades of the Carlisle Post to the soil of Virginia and receive them according on the 21st of July. September following, the Post in turn invited the Southerners to visit Carlisle and greeted them with a public reception. The meeting was held on the fair ground in the presence of the large assembly, and Governor Henry M. Hoyt welcomed the Virginians. General James A. Beaver and the Grand Army Post 58 116 of Harrisburg took part in the reunion. In October that year, the members of the Aaron Wilkes Post of Trenton, New Jersey, on their journey to Yorktown Centennial celebration, visited Richmond and were entertained in a fraternal manner by the Veteran Association of the 1st Virginia Regiment and by other Confederates. In each case, at Luray and at Richmond, the meeting was brought about by the overturns of the part of the Northern veterans. The Lee Camp Confederate veterans at Richmond were formed soon after their visit of Aaron Wilkes Post. The list of the more prominent formal reunions included the following. And here we have, there's a listing from 1881 all the way to 1887 at different reunions that took place between the Northern Army and the Southern Army, or the Confederates and the Army of the Republic. And the meetings have been, two exceptions, were devoted mainly to the interchange of social courtesies. On other noteworthy associations, the Southerns have extended less formal attentions to the Northern veterans by visiting the old battlefields, particularly at Pea Ridge, Chickamauga, Chattanooga, Petersburg, Antietam, Ball's Bluff, and the region around Richmond. One of the practical results of personal acceptance that sprung up at these reunions was the cooperation of the Grand Army of the Republic with the Confederate armies in raising funds to erect a home for disabled Southern soldiers at Richmond. The move to establish the home originated with Lee Camp and was promptly endorsed by the Grand Army Post of Virginia. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Acting on the suggestion of the ex-Confederate members, the Confederate Committee published a call for a mass meeting be held at Cooper Institution April the 9th, the anniversary of Lee's surrender, and General Grant was called upon to preside. His response to the invitation was as follows. Washington, April 3rd, 1884. General J.B. Gordon, Chairman, Central Committee, New York. Your letter of March 31st informed me that I had been chosen to preside at the meeting of the different posts of the GAR and ex-Confederates in the city of New York as received. The object of the meeting is to inaugurate, under the auspices of soldiers of both armies, a movement on behalf of a fund to build a home for disabled ex-Confederate soldiers. I am hearty sympathy with the movement and would be glad to accept the position of presiding officer if I were able to do so. You may rely on me, however, if rendering all aid I give in carrying out the designs of the meeting. I am here under treatment for the injury I received on Christmas Eve last, and will not be able to leave here until later than the 9th. I cannot tell how soon or when I shall be able to go. I have received this morning your dispatch of last evening urging that I must be there to preside, but I have to respond to that it will be impossible for me to be there on the 9th, and I cannot fix a day where I could certainly be present. Hoping that your meeting will ensure success and promising my support financially and otherwise to the movement. I am very truly yours, U.S. Grant. So you see those two, this one, the letter, and this one kind of go together, because U.S. Grant was suffering from bankruptcy and losing funds in the letter, and now you have this where they're asking for money from U.S. Grant at the same time. So it was kind of difficult for him to do it at the same time. And well, that's it for today's reading from the Century Magazine. Thank you, BookTube. Take care.